Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. The election for the post of President of Cricket West Indies set for the 20th of March. And the incumbent Ricky Skerritt says the exercise is an opportunity for the cricket fraternity to think seriously about the leadership it wants going forward. Skerritt and his vice president, running mate Dr. Kishore Shallow, are campaigning for re-election and have asked delegates to trust in what they are calling an upgraded 10-point cricket first plan. The Skerritt-Shallow ticket is being challenged by the combination of Guyana's Anand Sanasi and his running mate Calvin Hope out of Barbados. Ricky Skerritt joins us to talk about his bid for a new term in office. Ricky, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. Great to have you on. It's strange how time flies. Just it's 2 years ago that we were talking to you about becoming the new president. Let me start here. For a long time leading up to the March 28 date, we heard nothing of anyone challenging your presidency. Eventually that challenge surfaced. Are you surprised there is a challenge, and how confident are you that you can fend it off?
Well, Lance, first of all, let me say what a pleasure it is to be with you and George and Mariah again. I am very honored to be your guest. The politics of Cricket West Indies is something that I don't really enjoy, but the system has an allowance for challenging the incumbent and trying to bring betterment to the leadership, and that is a healthy thing. So I wasn't terribly surprised. The short of it is that I was not surprised coming from these two individuals who have spent the last 2 years being opposition in the parliament, so to speak. I've said that recently. I've said it before to them. I've said it to others. So it's no surprise that if you're in opposition in a parliament, then and you practically have a political party against the government, then when election time comes around, you're going to go and fight the election. So it's a welcome development in the sense of the democracy that it brings, but you know, it's so obvious that people spend too much time in a boardroom being negative, being resistant, being opposing, and then just want to get rid of you for reasons which are more personal and petty than cricket.
Yeah. President Skerritt, you got 8 of the 12 votes last time, 2 years ago. How solid are you going into these elections? And you mentioned Sanasi and Hope being oppositions. Is there any chance of them gathering any kind of momentum that could challenge the pretty comfortable win you had last time? Lance,
you know, politics anywhere is uncomfortable to predict because, you know, people vote sometimes on a whim or a fancy, but I am sincerely hoping and I'm optimistic that the people who have that responsibility to vote will understand that we are on a good thing, that we have made some significant changes and that the road forward looks more promising than it did 2 years ago, and that Skerritt-Shallow deserves, you know, as we say, one good term deserves another. I'm pretty certain that we have the majority of the voters thinking that way.
I know that we're in a pandemic, but I find it fitting to ask you, the status of the debt that you inherited from the Dave Cameron's administration. Has that been paid off?
No. Cricket West Indies is an organization that has been endemic in its cash flow deficit, and it's been very difficult to climb out of that hole. So there's always obligations that you can't meet on time. We have worked diligently to try to bring that situation under control. I'm happy to say we've made tremendous progress, especially with the institutional debt. But you know, we still have work to do. We have dropped our overall debt in just 2 years from about 30 million or so down to about 20 million. But most importantly, our institutional debt has fallen from about 18 million down to 3 million. What that means is that you don't always have banks and other private financial institutions with their hands out waiting for any dollar that we get goes straight to them. We actually get into to spend some of our own money again in areas of investment where it's a priority.
I know you have plans also to restructure the Cricket West Indies board by halving the number of board members. How will that work?
Let's be clear on that.
Yeah.
I don't have plans to restructure the West Indies Cricket Board.
Okay.
We have received a very comprehensive report from Don Webby and a team of what I call wise men. Wise in the sense not just of their own professions, but cricket. These are all, cricket enthusiasts and in some cases former cricketers. And they have given us a pretty decent meal to chew on in terms of how do we improve the way we operate as a board, and how do we improve the way in which we elect officers as a board, and should these officers stay on indefinitely, or should there be term limits? So that report is before our members at the moment, because ultimately they're the ones who will have to decide on the way forward relative to that report or any other proposal to do with governance.
President, good afternoon. Good to have you here.
Pleasure, George.
Let's pick up on the Webby report, because that's where I want us to go, because there were some crucial timelines that I'm assuming you would have missed because of COVID-19 in 2020. It was announced that around about August 17 last year, members would have gotten the Webby report to digest. Then there was to be feedback provided in November, and then suggestions made, and then a face-to-face meeting in December to look at an implementation schedule. So August, November, December, I'm assuming those timelines have been missed. If so, what are the new timelines you're looking at to work through the implementation of the recommendations?
George, you're bang on target. You remember exactly what we had said. Those were exactly that, guidelines. A number of situations caused delays, just an amazing amount of other higher priority demands on our resources and our time. But one of the things we did, George, which we had not planned to do, but we found it necessary to do, was to ensure that the territorial boards could get a little bit more of an opportunity to interact on the subject, because we had complaints that the Webby task force had not interviewed enough people, hadn't done enough homework according to the critics. They hadn't gone to the boards of the member shareholder territories and spent enough time with them before they wrote their opinions. So although Webby and his folks and his team had in fact interviewed several people, including several presidents of the territorial boards, we felt with an abundance of caution, we would set up a working group to facilitate that process and almost take the Webby report through another sort of phase of exposure. And at first I took on the chairmanship, and then it made more sense to get an independent director to chair it. So we got Mike Finley to chair it. And Mike Finley, along with one member of the task force, a couple of past cricketers, other couple of members from the board, about a 6 or 7 person committee, they have been engaging with the boards. They've already engaged with 4 boards. They've had the feedback. They've documented it. They've submitted some interim reports. And the 2 boards that have not yet, that have been quite delayed in engaging with this working group, are the boards that are basically controlled by our 2 opponents. So I don't need to tell you what that appears like, but hopefully at some point they will allow their boards to engage. But I expect that after the election is over, whoever is in the leadership that this will be a project that needs bringing to conclusion.
Yeah.
And that timeline will have to be set from then onwards, I think.
But do you get the impression, given the amount of work that is going on, and we're up on the break, so I'm just asking for a quick response before we go to the break and come back with you. Do you get the sense from the amount of work that has been done that perhaps by the June quarter next year, we would have had a clear implementation schedule for these crucial recommendations?
Well, I think that's quite long. I think that the shareholders, we can have an extraordinary general meeting, certainly by June, yes, to actually engage on the subject and discuss whether the Webby report goes forward or what elements of it go forward or not. I don't think it's rocket science. I don't think it needs much more other than the consultation that is left to be done. And I believe that by the middle of the next calendar year, of this calendar year, I could see the shareholders meeting to dig into it and decide which of, if any, they will adopt.
Yep. Stay where you are, President Skerritt. Much more after these. We're talking to the incumbent head of Cricket West Indies, who is up for another term, March 28, and he's talking about the basis for his re-election bid. Back with us on the SportsMax Zone, Ricky Skerritt is seeking another term as Cricket West Indies president. Himself and Dr. Kishore Shallow are part of one ticket, and they're being challenged by Anand Sanasi and Calvin Hope. March 28, election day. Ricky Skerritt is with us now. Some detail from you now, Mr. President, in this second segment, because I'd like to ask, what would you say are the two areas in which you've managed to improve the administration of West Indies cricket relative to where you took it from when you beat Dave Cameron in 2019?
Well, we have made progress on all fronts, but especially on the cricket front with regards to the coaching education program we put in place. We virtually have a revolution taking place. We've touched over 400 coaches in 3 different levels. We've touched over 200 in the foundation level, so they're all brand new coaches who we're talking about teachers and parents and others who are just getting that early introduction. And over 80 of them are women. And that is building the base for a network of coaches across the region like we've never seen before. And over the next 2 years, we think we can take that number well above 1,000. And these are all volunteers who are looking to help young kids and teenagers. And in the case of the higher level 2 and level 3 coaches, we haven't done any level 3 coaching certification yet, but we've done level 1 and level 2. And, basically, I would say on that front, and the use of data analytics in communicating the well-being and the activities of our players under the guidance of these coaches. This is a new development which is happening at a fairly rapid rate.
So that's one. Okay, give me the other one.
Well, the other one is the atmosphere that we've created with players, and you could make it another one and say stakeholders. But the stability that we have brought to Cricket West Indies relations.
It's better than what existed before, and in some cases it didn't exist before. You've put that in place, and you've cited the relationships with stakeholders, which not a minor point at all, very, very crucial. When you can take away the noise from the business of work, then you are on the path to success. But let me ask you this. The Webby report was clear. The structure that Cricket West Indies has is by design unwieldy. You are still in that structure, perhaps through no fault of your own, because time overtook you. You couldn't implement those recommendations and get results in the cycle that you are in. But you were in that frame of an unwieldy bureaucracy, committees that weren't needed, committees that weren't really doing any work, and a structure that didn't lend itself to the best results of corporate governance and administration. So within that context, Ricky Skerritt, what would you say to the stakeholder looking on, the fan looking on, as the reason for you to be able to say that administratively, Cricket West Indies is better off and has been better off under your guidance than it certainly was under Dave Cameron's leadership?
Well, I mean, governance reform doesn't get limited to the board. We have been on reform at all levels in all quarters. For example, the financial reform that we've done using the PKF report as the basis. They provided 28 recommendations. The modernization and the establishment of policies and procedures within our financial system that either didn't exist before or were ignored to a large part. That has been a big area of reform. I mean, our procurement, our recruitment, areas where millions of dollars have been spent over the last 20 years are now being very carefully managed and monitored so that we don't waste like we used to. But the Webby report that you keep referring to is a specific report that speaks to the way in which the board functions and how do we make quicker, less costly decisions on a sustainable basis.
Yeah. What I got from it was that the organization, and remember, it's not a personal criticism because you didn't make it so, but the organization
the Webby report was asked for by me.
Yeah, but I'm saying the criticisms that it makes of the structure, you didn't make the structure. So I'm saying what it found was that it wasn't lean, nimble, and fit for purpose, and its recommendations are to make it so. But in the what you've given an answer in the 1 minute we have because time is short. What would you say? And you have command of language, Ricky Skerritt, to be able to answer this without wading into controversy, because I don't want you to say that you don't want to wade into controversy. But why is it that you would advise delegates who have the power of the vote on March 28th not to invest the future of West Indies cricket in the hands of the Sanasi Hope ticket at this time? What is it about that combination you believe that would not serve West Indies cricket right now at this moment in time?
Look, George, I am not the type who says bad things about people. I don't like to discuss people. All I will say is that Shallow and myself have proven beyond doubt that we are serious about investing in ideas and policies and programs that benefit West Indies cricket, not us individually, not particular groups over others. We have clearly shown that we are serious, that we are honest, and that we can be trusted to do what we say we are going to do. And where we fail, it was well-meaning. There's no clandestine activity, no cloak and dagger activity taking place around us. And we will fight against anything that doesn't speak to transparency.
So are you saying, so do you say that to say that investing in the other team would open the Cricket West Indies to be characterized as leadership by cloak and dagger affairs, clandestine affairs, Corey favoring, self-interest, self-aggrandizement? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
George, all I'm saying is that they won't get that from us.
Hear you on that. Thank you very much, Mr. President. All the best to you. And I'm sure we'll talk development activities sometime in the future.
Let's do it soon. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
That's Ricky Skerritt, the president of Cricket West Indies. So the attempts at implementing the Webby reforms, and I recommend for those who haven't read the report, it's not long, and even if it were long, it will still be worth reading, to look at what has been proposed, because a part of the problem that West Indies cricket has had, and what people were saying about Dave Cameron's team, about his leadership being that of an executive president and not a president, the reforms that are being suggested are aimed at removing that, to put a chairman in place. So the president will not be the president anymore, it will be the chairman, and then he will not have a vice president that is voted in, but we will appoint a deputy chairman from among the directors. I'm saying that those reforms can't come soon enough, and until then perhaps we won't see Cricket West Indies' from an administrative perspective, working as efficiently as it ought to, and that has to be a priority for the next team that leads this organization. I'm sure you'll agree.
Definitely has to be a priority, George, because we realize that a lot of things that happen, in management has been, meted out on the field, and that's what we want to get rid of. So if the Webby report recommendations, can remove us from such controversy, then that's the direction we need to be heading in.
Yeah, well, the Webby report was just the latest of several other reports, including the Patterson report that spoke of governance reform. So, it is just the latest of several that we saw before, which the West Indies Cricket Board and now Cricket West Indies haven't really embraced fully.
Somehow, I think this one, and I've read all of them, this one is, and I don't want to disrespect anybody, but this one is less pretentious. This one is more practical.
Yes.
I like this one. The others were almost dictatorial. Please do this, do that. Well, not please, do this, do that, do that. It's inviting the Webby report to, gentlemen, we think you may want to look at this, that. The tone is better. I think we'd be better off, whoever wins on March 28th, to implement that. Break time, back with more. We talk about the West Indies and Sri Lanka.